Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and a lot of people, actually this happens every single time I put up a deadlift video, people start saying things like, why don't you control the eccentric? Why aren't you lowering the weight under control? Wouldn't you get better muscle gains in your back and hamstrings and everything if you did that? Why are you just slamming the weight down? And let's cover some of that for a bit, because actually I do have what we would call an eccentric rep. I do not turn loose of the bar. I just let it fall fairly fast. And yes, I do actually have a concentric component to my deadlift. It's just very, very fast. And there's a couple different issues going on here. First of all, a lot of people don't do an eccentric at all. They just turn loose of the bar, and you'll notice it falls even faster than mine does, because I actually hold onto the bar. So there is some control and slowing of the bar. It's just not a great deal of it. But a lot of people, like you guys have seen Elliot Hulse on Strength Camp, just deadlift and just turn loose at the top. There's a few issues with just turning loose at the top. Number one, it could damage the floors. I would actually probably do that at this point, because since I'm not going to compete in powerlifting again in the foreseeable future and just want to build explosiveness, power, all of that, and size, that I would probably just turn loose, but it might damage the floor there. I have some control, and I'm using bumper plates and everything so that I don't really mess up the deadlift platform, because it's the only one I have access to at the moment. But if you're going to compete in powerlifting, obviously you want to be able to hold onto the bar, because you're required to do so in a competition. And once you get into a competitive environment and you're focused upon hitting those maxes, you're going to tend to fall back into however you train. And so if you turn loose at the top, you're probably going to do so at a competition. Otherwise, you're going to have to put conscious thought into not doing so, which will then take focus out of you lifting as much weight as possible and focusing upon just the speed and power and everything. So it's not necessarily ideal for competitive powerlifting, but for overall strength, explosiveness, speed, it actually can be to do so, again, at the expense of possibly damaging the floor. So I do have some control over the weight there. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, you know, it would help you build a lot more size. Well, that's really arguable, isn't it? Because I might do one less rep due to the fatigue of the eccentrics. And number two, all of the people who meet me and people who notice me in videos note that things like my back, my lower back, my glutes, my hamstrings all surpass most of the rest of my physique. All these other body parts that I train like a bodybuilder are oftentimes inferior in size and development to all those muscles involved in my deadlift. And the reason for that is the explosive power and speed by itself without an eccentric component works just fine for hypertrophy. It's still about muscle fiber recruitment. That's the thing that you guys need to remember. You could argue all day long about slow reps, fast reps, concentrics, eccentrics, all of those things. You can argue about those forever, but the thing is, it is muscle fiber recruitment and muscle fiber fatigue that is going to be your primary component to hypertrophy. There's other factors that affect how much, obviously, but really that is the biggest factor that comes down to either you're recruiting enough muscle fibers to stimulate those muscle fibers, or you are not. That's the biggest factor. And the thing is, I'm lifting a very heavy weight, doing rep work with it, doing it fairly frequently. Therefore, all of those muscles grow really fast for me. It's due to the sheer workload put upon them. So it's not necessary. It just isn't. And there have been plenty of coaches who've noticed this, that their guys go up in weight classes and gain muscle. A lot of strength athletes, like at the world level, like the Olympics and things, when they have them do only concentric reps. So there's a lot more to it than that. The other thing to consider is that the deadlift was never really intended to be an eccentric exercise. The nature of this exercise makes it a concentric focused exercise. The eccentric focus, the lowering focused version of the deadlift is called the Romanian deadlift. And the difference there is that you can perform the Romanian deadlift much safer because it's built, and the actually way you perform the exercise is intended to be done as an eccentric based exercise. Therefore, it's actually safer. On the deadlift, because of the nature of the exercise and the heavy weights you're using and the strain it puts on your lower back and things, and particularly like your vertebrae, lowering the weight slowly on a deadlift, a heavy deadlift, is actually going to have a much higher chance of damaging your lower back. Like some people are saying, oh, aren't you going to be at a higher rate of injury from that? And the answer is no. It's that lowering of it, using your lower back and your lower vertebrae or your lumbar spine to control the lowering slowly on a deadlift is actually how more guys get hurt on the deadlift and turn to their back than any other thing. Most of the guys who've injured their lower back on the deadlift that I've ever heard of, that is how they actually do it. And if you look at the biomechanics of it, the actual slow lowering of a conventional style deadlift, puts stress on your lower back that it may not be able to handle, may not be able to adapt to. So by lowering it slowly, you're subjecting yourself to a much higher injury rate. So there's actually an injury prevention component to this also. So remember, guys, the deadlift is really intended to be a concentric exercise. You can develop plenty of strength and power, if not maximum strength and power, without worrying about the eccentric component. It's safer to perform it that way, and if you really feel that you need an eccentric component to your deadlifting, you can go do Romanian deadlifts as an accessory or secondary exercise, and they will absolutely fill that role amazingly well if you feel that you need that in your training to bring up some weak spot in terms of either strength or muscular development. So you have another tool available for that. The deadlift itself, it isn't necessary, and it may not even be desirable. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.